Well, how's everybody doing? It's Saturday, 3 o'clock, and I'm Bob Gums, and this is the Concerned Forum. You know, it is hot as hell today here in Manhattan, the cradle of New York City, and it is one hot cradle, I'll tell you. I'm wondering if this might have something to do with this damn climate change. I believe it does. Although, unfortunately, we have a candidate for one of the major parties that believes that climate change is a hoax. So I guess all those polar bears up in Alaska, they don't know what they're talking about. And of course, I'm referring to Donald Trump, the Don. And it's so crazy to me that in this day and age, you actually got someone that supposedly is an intelligent, he claims, educated person who thinks that climate change is a hoax. But hey, that's your Republican Party. Those are the type of people that they have running around, running for office. And quite frankly, I think that if you want America to live in a cartoon, then yeah, by all means, vote for Donald Trump and people like him in the Republican Party. I understand that a lot of folks, myself included, are angry because the guy that we wanted to win the nomination, Bernie Sanders, he lost. Now, I understand that, how should I put this? Well, let me put it this way. I understand that supposedly the tally of the votes foredoomed Bernie to lose anyway. I go along with that. But we do know that there is a lot of chicanery behind closed doors, as it were. And those two things, well, they made for a lot of bad feeling. I'm being realistic. I understand people being angry, being upset that Senator Sanders did not get the nomination. But now, for right now, that's water under the bridge. We have to deal with the fact that Donald Trump might be our next president. And that is a frightening thought. So I'm not, right now, between now and November, I'm not concerned with inside the house housekeeping. And inside the house, I refer, of course, to the DNC, the Democratic Party. Yes, as Democrats, we have a lot to look at. We have a lot to do after the election is over, irregardless who wins. But right now, our minds need to be focused on keeping this madman, Donald Trump, out of the White House. I think one of the things that is so terrifying is that what the Trump campaign has managed to do, they have managed to make insanity the norm. They have managed to make dishonesty, lying, the norm. And I think that is so dangerous. I think it's dangerous for a guy to feel so proud that the base of his supporters pride themselves on their lack of education and sophistication. I think that's damn dangerous. As a nation, we have always, as a whole, we have always been about trying to push upwards, not downwards, and not being satisfied about our lack of education. Education, a certain amount of sophistication, those were things that we aspired towards. And I think it's very sad that this guy comes along, and now it seems that people are more prone to be attacked because they're educated and have a certain amount of sophistication. And oh, for God's sakes, don't let it be a black president. Woo! Mm-mm. That's been the problem to a large extent with President Obama. You know, it's funny. People in America, when you come across bigoted-minded people, it's so strange, I notice, because you're either a dumb colored person, and if you're not dumb, but you happen to be well-spoken, educated, with a certain hint of sophistication, then you're a smart nigga. And it's like you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And I believe that's one of the large problems that the president in general has, and I think also the Democratic Party has, with that certain element that's about this whole racist thing. Now, I got a few things here I want to hit at because I want people to think about. I think that our media has to bear a certain amount of responsibility for Donald. They must. They gave this guy a huge platform. He didn't really need to go and buy airtime for commercials that much, because it was like the media was constantly playing to this guy. As a matter of fact, what is it? A vice president or someone high up in the CBS chain of command was overheard making the comment of how great Donald Trump running for president, how great it was for their bottom line. And I guess it was, I guess so. I guess it also depends a lot on how much you value your country. Are you disturbed? If you're a network official, you got to ask yourself, what's more valuable to you? Are you concerned at all about the fact that you giving this guy so much more airtime than his opponents? You might help elect an unqualified moron to the Oval Office. Does that bother you? I mean, it might have you singing all the way to the bank, but is that what you really want for your country? I mean, don't you and your family, your kids, your grandkids, you live here? Are you planning on continuing to stay in this country? Is that the kind of country that you want for yourself and for your families? I think the media really needs to think about that. And I'm not talking about censoring, okay? That's wrong. When anybody censors, that's wrong. But what I am talking about is giving unfair advantage to someone that is obviously doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Now, we've all seen this since this campaign has begun. You give Trump and you give you gave Trump and you gave his surrogates so much time to literally say a lot of nothing. And you didn't spend enough time pinning them down with direct questions and demanding straight answers. You can do that. It might cause them to get up and walk off the stage, but that's fine. But you can at least let the public see that, yeah, you're doing your best. You're doing due diligence and trying to inform the American public. Now, I will say, what are we now? We're in September. Okay, you know, the 9th, the 10th. Okay, I will say, with the exception of Fox, of course, but those of us who follow the news on a regular basis, well, we know what Fox is all about. I mean, and that's fine. But I'm happy to see the rest of the networks starting to really apply due diligence. I hope they keep it up in terms of asking Trump and his surrogates, just what the hell are you talking about? Now, wow, this guy is really something. Now, I guess you've all heard about the supposedly secret briefing that the candidates receive as we get, you know, closer and closer to the election. Trump comes off with this this comment about, well, he can tell. Basically, what he says is, I can tell from the body language that the intel people used at the briefing, I could tell that they didn't like the policies of President Obama. Now, I spent 5 years in the intelligence community. I was an intelligence technician assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA. Top secret clearance, the whole entire ball of wax. And I have helped with a few briefings to high-level people myself. I've helped with briefings for the president. I've helped with briefings for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, a congressman, I believe, here and there. So I have some idea of how the mechanics work, you know, what goes into that. And the idea that this guy, who has essentially spent his life in real estate, I could say something nasty like he spent his entire life ripping off his employees, you know, and stuff like that. But we won't go there right now. But in other words, someone is, hell, when he had a chance to go into the military and get involved in intelligence work, he didn't do it. What was it, 3 or 4? No, I think it was 6 deferments. So the idea that this guy now has suddenly become a military expert and an intelligence expert, and that he could tell what's going on by the body language, you know, I think that would be hilarious. It is hilarious. Unfortunately, the hilarity is on us. The joke is on us. Because there's a very good possibility this guy could be our next president. And I can tell you, the intelligence community, not just here in the United States, not just in Washington, but all our Western allies, Germany, France, Britain, or England, Spain, all of them, they are terrified at the thought of a Trump presidency and what it could do, the damage and harm it could do to our Atlantic alliance which we have had since World War II. And me, myself, as I said, I'm terrified at that prospect. The idea that this guy Trump is going to be going and seeing some of the same information that I saw, only he will be in the position where he can actually act upon it. However crazy, whichever crazy way he wants to act on it, however he chooses. And that really scares the living hell out of me. And something else I heard, and I'm following up on it as best I can, but the idea that somehow the people in his group, in Trump's group, but they have been able to pressure the Republican Platform Committee to not condemn any Russian aggression in Eastern Europe, such as the Ukraine, the things that have been on the news over the last year and a half. This guy, apparently, he's on the side of Putin. And this seemingly, what do they call it now? Some term. But the idea that he looks up to this guy so much, even to the point where he actually suggests that President Obama should have been more like Putin. And, I'm like, well, damn, where has this guy been for the last 40 years? Has he seen what's happened with the old Soviet Union, now Russia, over the last 40 years? Does he understand what's been happening in that part of the world? Obama could be just like Putin. Have journalists killed, assassinated, march into other countries for spurious reasons. I mean, this is the type of stuff that Putin does. And, I mean, birds fly. Dictators, autocrats, they do their thing. The question that we need to ask is, well, wait a minute, man, why do you hold this guy in such high esteem? Why do you sound like you would like to be like him? Is that what you have in store for us here in America? That the laws and restraints that you come across in our constitutional system, you just want to tear them up and do things your way? And you think that that's the sign of being a great leader? I don't know about any of you folks out there, but I think that's kind of scary, quite frankly. This is something that, I was trying to make these notes, and I was trying to remember, things out of my past when I used to when I was assigned at GIA. The idea that what's going on right now is that the Russians seem to be involved in a kind of a hybrid warfare, It's like warfare, but not the conventional warfare, bang, bang, hand grenade, hit the deck, boom. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a type of warfare where, the media becomes a weapon. Other people can be used as weapons. Uh, as a former intel person, I would have to say that Donald Trump has given the appearance that he is an unknowing, not realizing that he has actually become a surrogate and like a co-ally with Putin and Putin's Russia. And like I said, I know our counterintelligence community is terrified. This guy is holding hands with the former head of the KGB. All right, this is just like, it's just like if you had someone that was holding hands with the Gestapo, the Nazi Gestapo. Okay, that's what I'm not trying to besmirch anybody. That's what the KGB was about. We have our thing, they have theirs, and theirs was the KGB. You know, the kick on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. You will come with us, please. Yeah, that was Putin. That was his KGB. And this is the guy that the Donald says he looks up to and gives the impression that he would like to emulate. And something else I think needs to be brought up. And I'm not switching the subject. I'm bringing up something that I think it kind of dovetails into what we're talking about here. We have these. I won't call them fringe parties. The Green Party and the Libertarian Party with my boy didn't know what was going on in Syria with Aleppo. But I really have a problem on a couple of different levels at this point. Because to me it seems like these outside parties, and when I say outside, I mean outside of the two-party system. And they said they want to break down the two-party system, blah, 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 and open it up. Okay. Generally, that's an interesting idea. It doesn't sound like a bad thing. But the problem is, and now I'm not just speaking as a person that actually had some experience in the inner workings of government. I'm also speaking now as a black American man, one who's had a family member back in the day that was a victim of a lynch mob. And I throw that in because I'm trying to make a point. Forgive me if I'm not good at it, at the point I'm trying to get to. But we have a situation right now that this is not a typical election. This is not the typical, two-party Democrat, Republican, scratching at each other, quote unquote, supposedly using scare tactics. This is not that kind of election. This is not typical. I've never, as far as Democrats lying in typical elections on Republicans, I have a hard time with that one. But without throwing in there to help make my point that this is not the typical election. And by the way, in a typical election, when the Democrats are trying to tell working people, watch out for the Republicans because they're going to take your Social Security away, that's not a lie. They've already attempted that. So I had to throw that in there. But in terms of this being a typical election with typical scare tactics, I'm sorry, folks. That's not the case. Anyone that tells you that, either they don't know what the hell they're talking about or they're telling you a lie. I would say that this is probably the most dangerous election that this country has seen. I would say probably since 1932. And in 1932, we were in danger of having a coup d'etat at that time, because you had a real disastrous economic situation. And we were saved by a couple of people. One was Franklin Roosevelt. The other one, as I'm proud to say, was the United States Marine, whose name, unfortunately, I can't think of off the top of my head. Was it Barney? But at any rate, this gentleman was appealed to by a coalition of businessmen, corporate executives, rich people. Smedley Butler, that was the Marine's name. He was a major general. I think he's about the only military person that ever won the Medal of Honor twice. And they wanted him to basically run the government, or at least get a group of veterans together to overthrow Franklin Roosevelt. And what he did, he played along, got the information, and then he exposed them. And that's why that Marine will always be a hero to me. And there are folks right now that are wondering, are we facing a similar situation now? Is Donald Trump trying to have a type of coup d'etat here so he can have the opportunity to be an American Putin? Frankly, I tell you, I definitely get that impression. And it would also seem that he is trying to build up the steam so that we can have a racial conflict here in this country. I mean, you have to remember, what started this gentleman's campaign? The president, the first black president, is not an American. That's the first thing, where he really got into the public notice nationally in terms of politics, right? That's how he started, right? Obama was born in Kenya. It's a lie. He's really not the president. It's a fake job. And then when he wants to actually announce his candidacy, what does he do? He starts off with a whole tirade, a terrible slur against Latino people. What does Mexico send us? He says, they send us their murderers, their rapists, their thieves. Now, if that is not a call for racial disharmony, if that's not waving the proverbial red flag in front of the bull, I don't know what the hell is. And this is how this guy started his campaign off. Well, no, Donald Trump cannot tell, even in conversation, I don't think he knows the difference between somebody from Mexico as opposed to somebody from the Dominican Republic as opposed to somebody from Venezuela or Colombia. So, as far as I'm concerned, his slur was meant for anyone of a Latino background. That's how he started. That's how he got his start in politics. So I don't think anybody should look horrified or feel shocked when I say that this guy is basically, he's trying to start some type of race war, some type of racial disharmony. The comments that he has made about blacks, remember at his campaign rally, oh, well, back in the old days, we knew how to handle guys like that. And then when one of his crazy sycophants swings on a black demonstrator that was nonviolent, Trump, he's up there cheering these people on, even offering to pay the guy's legal fees. So I don't think that I'm being too harsh or paranoid when I say that, hey, Donald Trump is running a campaign based on race. If you are not a white male American or a white woman that's willing to be like second fiddle to his violin, you're a bad person. You're not a good American. This is the same guy that said one of the greatest military guys that we have living, and I speak of my fellow Navy veteran, John McCain. What did he say? Oh, well, I don't like guys that were captured. That's not a hero to me. Well, no, dunderhead. The one beside, and I was like everyone else because I was in the military during Vietnam, and like most people that I came across when I was in the military, we had lost any kind of feeling about the war. But we were still Americans. We were in the military. We did our jobs. And what made McCain a hero, one of the other things that made McCain a hero, dunderhead, is the fact that the North Vietnamese offered to get him out of there ahead of all the other people who had been, captured, shot down, and were being held. They did that because McCain, prominent family. Both his dad and his granddad were admirals. So the North Vietnamese, I guess they were trying to get a little good publicity for themselves on the world stage. And they told him, look, we'll cut you loose. Go ahead, you can go home. And McCain said, no. We're going out in order. I just, relatively speaking, I just got here. I'm not going to go out ahead of all these other men that have been here way longer than I have. He turned down the chance to come home. And he decided that he was going to stay in prison as a prisoner of war and take his turn like everyone, like the way that it was supposed to be set up. And he refused to accept any special favors. when he could have done so. And that's one of the other things that make John McCain a hero, Donald. But see, that type of thing, that's something that you would have no concept of, Donald Trump. Looking out for your buddies, standing by your comrades, actually living by the Constitution and the oath that he took when he became a naval officer. And I'll tell you something else. One of the three main things that fuel your campaign, Donald, is race hatred. I mean, let's face it, let's cut the crap. The economy, yeah, that figures in there to a certain extent, but a lot of that, well, working class people, and I know I'm going to catch hell for saying this, but for the last couple of decades, you guys have been voting Republican all the time. You've been voting for the elected officials that will give, you there in Ohio, the factory that you used to work in, that's now in Southwest Asia somewhere, or Latin America, or China. Well, guess what? That conservative, that Republican that you voted for, he voted for a measure so that this guy, the factory guy can get or the corporation guy can get a tax break for taking your job away, for taking that factory, that corporation out of your community and putting it overseas. And he got paid for doing that. And you voted for the people that made that crap possible. So, and that was you were doing that before Obama ever came to the White House. So you see, you kind of helped yourself to your own destruction. Let's be clear about this. Middle class, working class, used to be middle class, now you're low income, flipping a burger if you're lucky in many of those communities in the Midwest and down south. Don't get mad at people who tried to help, and all you did was sit in the bleachers and scream at them, "Oh, you dirty liberal. You're a dirty lefty. You're a socialist." And these were the folks that were trying to help you. But you didn't want to listen to that. All you wanted to hear was these social values. Oh, well, I can't go with her or I can't go with him because he's talking about a woman's right to choice. That one, he's trying to take away my guns. Oh, and that one, I think he's trying to do a little bit too much for those blacks and those Hispanics. That's the kind of crap that you hear in many of these communities, all right? You vote Republican, unfortunately, the interest of the Republican Party. This is not the Republican Party of my father's day, when he was a district leader in Harlem for the Republican Party. That was back in the 50s and early 60s. They're not worrying about labor anymore. They're worried about what they can get from their corporate their corporate supporters. And they're not worried. They weren't worried too much about your job. But what they did, they held out race, they held out sex, okay? Those third rails of American politics. And they threw that on the table for you to play with, and that's exactly what you did. And while you were sitting up there worrying about Jolene Clancy down the street having her freedom of choice, these cats were helping corporate America take your job overseas. That's why you're in the condition that you're in. And no, it wasn't because of black and Latino women on welfare. Sorry. Corporate America has hit this country for billions, while steadily cutting back on things like food stamps, things like unemployment in many of these states. That's where the problem is. That's what happened. Infrastructure. There's no infrastructure hardly being done in this country. Every time a Democrat tries to get an infrastructure bill through, what happens? It gets shot down. You cannot expect to have a decent, good quality of middle-class life if you consistently keep voting against your own damn interest. And that's what's happened here in this country. And Donald Trump is not going to change that. You have to change that. All he's trying to do is basically get you stirred up behind race and behind class. And you keep, and again, I'm very much concerned, very much afraid, because a lot of you folks are falling for it. And a lot, most people are basically decent people. They're not, they don't want to be racist, antagonistic towards other groups. But what happens when people think that their economic life is being threatened, people get very uptight. Okay, they get very mean-spirited, and Trump and his group. That's what they're taking advantage of. And it's time that you folks out there realize that what's happening out here. Now, I'll be honest. Like I said, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter in the Democratic primary. And I say that to also say that, yeah, there are policies that Hillary has projected over the last couple of decades that I don't agree with. Surprise, surprise. I don't agree with everything that Hillary Clinton's ever done. But I know damn well that we'll be better off, and our country can remain whole with Hillary Clinton in the White House. Donald Trump, he's not trying to build anything. He is trying to destroy. We have people in this country right now, and I guess because they're still stunned, because we've had a black president get elected twice in this country, and there are a group of people in this country that are very angry about that, very hateful about that. Look at the governor of Maine, for example. I go traveling up to Maine, I have to be careful because the governor of that state has already declared people who happen to have my skin tone enemies of the state, enemies of the citizens of Maine. That's what he said. I'm not making this up. People of color, we are the enemy, according to him. I fought for this country. I got disabled in the service of this country. And yet, according to him, I'm an enemy of this country. This is the kind of thing that Donald Trump has helped to bring out. Now, I'm sure that the governor of Maine has always been a jerk. I have no doubt about that. But when you have a party that features at the top of the ticket a Donald Trump who comes into politics spewing hate, what do you expect? You give people like that clown up in Maine, you give him a chance to amplify his craziness. And see, that's something, those are things that the American people really need to start thinking about as we draw closer to Election Day. And I think that these fringe parties, these third parties, they really need to just stop and, take a look at themselves. I'm very leery. I would be very leery of a party that you haven't gotten anybody in Congress, and you have been around for what, 5 decades now? You haven't gotten one person in Congress, and yet you're going to run for president? At a time when we have someone that is actively trying to tear the country apart, essentially. I have a big problem with that. I have a problem with African Americans that sit down and talk with Donald Trump. Because that's like a group of Jewish people sitting down having a cup of tea with Adolf Eichmann. They did the right thing. In real life, in real history, they did the right thing. They caught him and they hung him. Now, I'm not proposing that we treat Donald Trump the same way. Fortunately, in this country, under our laws, we don't have to worry about him or someone like him doing to us what unfortunately happened to the Jewish community in Germany. But I think we need to really start getting worried when a guy that's running at the head of one of the two major parties constantly reminds us of how great one of the world's biggest autocrats, dictators, how great his leadership skills are. That should be a concern. That's what these third parties really need to concentrate themselves about, quite frankly. And they need to be about educating people on the grassroots level. And the way to do that is not by trying to run for president. It's like you're going to build a penthouse before you dig up the build the basement. And I think that's very wrong. I think that as an African American man, I think that basically throwing away my vote, I think that's wrong. People of color, we don't have that luxury. And I think that that's something that people need to understand. Trump is just no damn good. That's basically, associating with him is you're being a Judas goat, period. I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up watching Donald Trump. That he means people of color no damn good. End of story. The other two parties, libertarians, they don't believe in government, basically. I mean, it's great. They want to end the war on drugs. They want to stop people from being arrested and having their lives and records totally screwed up because they had a nickel bag. I think that's wonderful. I really think that's wonderful, quite frankly. And the guy, I can't think of his name, but he made the comment that if people can go to a saloon and get sloshed, they should have the right to sit in their apartment and smoke a joint. And he's right about that. But unfortunately, along with that, they also believe that there should be no Social Security. That if you get injured, you should have money put aside to take care of yourself without the help of government. And then if you haven't gotten $3 or $4 million saved up by the time you're ready to stop working, because you feel that you have reached a certain age, tough luck. I don't agree with that. And I don't think most of you folks out there agree with that either. As far as the Green Party, I think that they are well-meaning people. I would never say that, anything contrary to that. The problem is that they have not taken the proper due diligence to work on the grassroots level. Why are you going to try and elect the president, elect one of your members president, when you have shown that you can't even get one of your members elected Congress anywhere in the United States? I don't understand that logic. I truly don't. Right now, this country is fighting for her life. Okay? We're fighting against the Breitbarts, for example. People who are they hate blacks, they hate Jews. Trump's male campaign manager had a problem with his ex-wife, with the school that his kid was supposed to go to, because what did he say? There are too many Jews. This is Trump's inner circle. He sits up there and he talks about, the wonderful Confederate flag. Yeah, the Confederate flag is wonderful. It's so wonderful, it belongs in a damn museum. And it should be out when reenactors are making movies. And that's it. But this whole thing about white culture under attack, these are the people who say this stuff. These are the people in Donald Trump's inner circle. And I really look at black people, especially, ministers, preachers, what have you, that formed part of Trump's black posse, as it were. What's that guy's name? The former brain guy, Carlson. I wonder if at some operation, I think somehow he might have clipped one of his own nerve endings in his own brain. Why would any sane black man or black woman be involved with a guy that is looked upon as a messiah by the Ku Klux Klan? Have we lost our minds in this damn country? I just don't, I don't see that. And I really wonder what community, I guess they must have their own little whatever to get together in. Because these people should have no credibility whatsoever in the black community unless they come to see the error of their ways. Because right now they are just serving as Judas goats. I wouldn't even say Uncle Toms. They are working with a guy who has hired for his inner circle people who would prefer to see most blacks and Jews in a concentration camp. Sorry. That's exactly how I see it. And I'm sorry if I got a little excited about that. But Nazis and Klans people, they kind of get they kind of get me like that, you know? Oh, I tell you. And the policies that his people in his inner circle have espoused towards women, towards the gay community. This is not the America that we've been striving for the last 50 years. And I think that what's really necessary, Americans, a lot of Americans really need to learn how to be a little more empathetic towards other people. I think that's another thing that Trump tries to take advantage of. He thinks that he can say all these horrible things because he's able to get away with them. And that shouldn't be. Our country is better than that. And, you know, this idea with these emails, Hillary and her emails, you know, this is one of the, probably the most persecuted women in the last 50 years, but she has never been prosecuted for anything because there's nothing there to prosecute her for. But see, that's the trick that we get from the Nazis. You put a lie out there and you keep repeating it over and over and over and over again. And some people will take it as the truth. And we have, as Americans, we have to be more careful than that. We have to really sit down and we really have to start looking at the facts. We really have to, when these debates, so-called debates come up, we have to be really paying attention to know and see who really knows what the hell they're talking about. Listen, we're going to get together again next week. And I want to thank you for having me in your home. Keep up with the news, and not just one source either. The media, they need to do things to improve themselves as well. But we all really need to start paying attention to the facts. And we got to remember, this is our country. We all live here. This is the Concerned Forum. I thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
topics first.